Jessica Hunley.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I wanted to kind of start this off talking a little bit about Jess. I've known Jess for quite a long time and been a big fan of her work, and I feel like this book is sort of a culmination of all the work she's done before this, and as a journalist, I spent a lot of time writing about other people and trying to put my voice in there and my sort of take in there. And Jess has done a lot of amazing work for a lot of musicians, doing incredible. She just did the Cat Stevens merch, and but there's always her voice in there. And this book is so wonderful because it's finally just Jess's voice, which is an amazingly unique and hilarious and moving voice. So I thought, I know Jess very well, but I wanted to get everyone to get to know her a little bit more, because this book is very personal, I think, and very much coming from her soul. So I kind of wanted to start a little bit about, if you could tell everyone about where you grew up and a little bit about how your childhood and your experiences as a kid may have influenced this piece.
I grew up on, first of all, thank you for that awesome, those kind words. It means a lot. And I grew up on Long Island. And I grew up as an only child in a home where with a handicapped parent, and you sort of kind of make imaginary friends as to get you through the day. So it was always like the Muppets and cartoons and kind of entertainment were my friends. I would get like super emotional watching The Muppet Show or watching Disney cartoons or reading books, and drawing was a super early way that I was able to express. And I think I still kind of carry that, because I feel like this book, people think it's a children's book, but it's actually, the characters sort of represent a child's eyes that's sort of going through things when you're an old soul. And that's kind of, always been a way of me to communicate through drawing.
You have these amazing characters in there, and I'm just sort of interested in, maybe we could click through a little bit, and if you could kind of, tell us a little bit about each of these characters, and also the one that there is a character in here that maybe if you can tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind and the evolution of this book, because some of these characters have been in your world for a really long time, and some are making their debut.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about how this book came to be and these characters kind of evolved for you.
Yeah, I started doing this. Doing this book. I really was trying to put this graphic novel together called Paradise for a really long time, and so some of the characters in On Board are from that. But for some reason, it wasn't. Not that it needed a narrative, but it wasn't as cohesive as, But I feel like lately I have such a struggle with being in the moment, and so that's where the kind of I'm bored theme came to light, because I actually realized that being bored is a super rare, beautiful thing these days, because we're constantly not bored. You can wait online for your groceries and you're not bored. You're looking at something, and things pop in your head. I actually feel dumber than ever before, even though I'm constantly looking at things. Like, people ask me things and my brain is like mush pie, because we're constantly looking at things. And I think that that theme of like having everything, but at the end of the day being like, I'm bored, that's kind of what brought these characters together.
Can you tell us a little bit about? Can I go like this?
Oh yeah.
You tell us a little bit about this guy.
Well, each character is kind of like a little alter ego. So I would say that this wizard in particular is, you never see a wizard struggling. The wizard's always finding the solution. So I thought it was kind of, funny to me to see this wizard being like, I'm trying, getting there. Am I relevant? Like, and that's, kind of what he represents, the daily struggles. And there's an ostrich who's like totally depressed and single and, hitchhiking around. And there's, a dog that is not cool anymore, and he represents age to me, and feeling relevant, and him. This drawing, that monster I made when I was 19, that exact drawing. So, and it's actually one of my favorites in the book. I don't know why it stayed true, but just him holding a balloon. It's like, get up.
And he's been around for a long time. And how did he make his way into this? Was it something that you were coming back to him a lot, and he kind of was like, I want to be included, or
he called me.
It's like, hey.
I actually was just looking at an archive of old stuff that I'd done, and I found this particular piece, and I was actually really like, oh, I did that? I was feeling the same way. So I've always been a, 60-year-old woman stuck in a, 19-year-old old soul. But yeah, that I felt like that's the sentiment of this piece really was ringing true, and so I kind of brought him back.
This is obviously, these are amazing one-panel comics, but there is this kind of thematic thread through this book. There is this sort of narrative. Do you want to talk a little bit about the sort of themes that you were exploring when you were doing this, and how you sort of saw it, how it sort of evolved and sort of started to come together as a cohesive piece?
Yeah, I saw it as kind of a variety show, so it was this weird, like, thinking back as a child and watching The Muppet Show and laughing, and these sort of recurring characters that happen. That's kind of how I saw On Board to be, and hopefully these characters will live on in other incarnations. But a lot of it is kind of frustration, and there's hope, of course, but in a panel like this ostrich is about to, like, spill her guts, and this man is drawing a pair of boobs. Little does she know. Which is how I feel a lot when I'm talking to people. But, I think it's just like, God, the world is, like, super weird right now. And everyone is kind of in their own pod, and who are we really talking to? And, like, I don't know. It's just it's a strange time to navigate, I think. And obviously this one, it's like, who will be the next person I hope will like me, is also who's going to be my hero next, or like who is going to help influence drive for me to do something else. And I think that's kind of it's not dark, but it's just a lot of dealing with and questioning sort of where we are right now, and creativity is hard as it is right now too, which is a theme in there as well.
I like the way he's phrasing, or she. I don't know. Is the dog?
It's Pat.
That's asexual canine. I like that the way that it's phrased. It's like not who will I like next, but who will be the next person to like me. It's not about you liking someone. It's just about who's next to like me. Whoever they are, it's great.
Yeah.
we see their records. Let's talk a little bit about music. Music obviously has been a big part of your life from the beginning, and you've worked with a ton of musicians. You know, maybe talk a little bit about the kind of music you listened to growing up and how that music maybe affected your artwork.
Yeah, I'm super influenced by music of the 60s and 70s, and my dad's record collection was obviously a huge influence, and the art on the album covers that also scared me, and some were like Friends, and and some were just so fascinating, like Al Stewart's Year of the Cat. I could just stare at and pretend I was in their world. And I think the music of that era just always connected with me, and still to this day. And I feel like there's a lot of soul in that music, and freedom, and I feel like that music represents a time of not being very self-aware, which I feel like we're definitely living in a self-aware time right now. Everyone's kind of Civil War reenactment, so... I think maybe partly that music still reminds me of my dad, or takes me to a time. It's a time machine, really. And but for some reason, the visuals and the ideas come from that era, and I can't in all kinds of genres, and I can't really put my finger on why.
And you just did all the tour merch for Cat Stevens' tour. How do you work when you're working with a musician? How do you kind of go back and forth? What's the process in terms of creating the imagery that goes with the music?
Well, sometimes they have an agenda. But I think I worked directly with him and his son on that project, and it was super cool. And we got to, I think he had in mind a lot of what he wanted for that project, and we got to do a Harold and Maude one, and obviously portraits of himself through his career. So I think that one was pretty on point. Like, we didn't really need to go to the imagination station to get more ideas, but I think some artists, again, like kind of what you're saying, a lot of artists sort of have in mind how they want to be portrayed, and that's why this book was a treat, because it was just finally my voice being able to go free.
I know that you were working, you had the graphic novel that you were working on. What made you decide to work in this specific medium of the one panel, kind of classic one panel, Gary Larson, this very classic form? Because you work in a lot of different mediums. I love this one. But can you talk a little bit about why this particular form is what you ultimately ended up wanting to work in? I think
there was an Edward Gorey book that we were looking at that was really nice, the way it was kind of one panel. Obviously, Gary Larson's The Far Side, and I think, and again, that variety show, like, I picture you, when you turn the page, it's like a little curtain being like, here's the next scenario.
Well, I think it's also interesting because it is, books inherently are this sort of, maybe antiquated form to some degree, but also sort of forces you to really spend time with something and really sit with it. Anyone that read The Far Side, it's like you had those books and you would just reach out and look at them all the time, even though you'd seen them a million times, and you'd sort of notice different details. And I think a theme that kind of runs through this book as well is just sort of that idea of really sitting with a concept and sitting with an image and sort of having your own experience with it. When you talk about being bored, I feel like you are maybe talking about this kind of blank slate meditative state that is very hard to come by nowadays because you're kind of constantly bombarded. what do you kind of, this one, for instance, I mean, there's a lot of, one of the major themes is sort of this insecurity.
I'm the turtle.
Just if you can kind of tell us a little bit more just about the like, what do you kind of hope people take away from this book?
I wanted to be like a little friend, because I think that we're all not alone in this, and oops. And I think that, it's something to take with you. That's why we chose to do such a small size, and to go back to it. Sometimes it's going to make you snicker. Sometimes it's going to make you cry, because it's really going to connect with you. One panel, maybe more. It's done with so much warmth, and trying to comment on, sort of daily salvation and successory posters of the 70s. But, I want people to feel connected to it in a way that it's their friend. Mm-hmm. And these wizards and walruses and weird characters got their back in a way. But I think a big one that people connected with was the Keep Going one, mm-hmm. where a girl is talking to her younger self. I think it's coming up.
This is my favorite one of the whole book. It says so much.
It does.
Not just about men and women, but just everyone's basically not really thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, no matter who they are.
I'm Hungry, the sequel, 2017. This one. A lot of people email me about this one, because it's basically her talking to her younger self, being like, how am I doing? And the younger self saying, keep going. And it's just, that one is a heavy one for me too, because you don't want to lose your imagination, your younger self. If you could sit with your younger self at a table and share what you've been doing, would they approve? Yeah. And I think that's also, obviously age is a huge theme of this book as well. So, it's, the book is supposed to connect with people in the respect of, you're not alone, and things are crazy, and whatever, we just keep going. Have some pizza.
Should we do questions? Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about your technique in general?
Yeah.
Like when you conceptualize something, how long it takes from that to completion, and starting and stopping over, what kind of materials you use, etc.?
Yeah, I always use the same pen. I use a Micron pen. I just started drawing in digital, so that's a new world. But I usually, the best ideas I used to get were on airplanes, because I had no distractions, and then JetBlue got Wi-Fi, so I'm totally fucked. But I get the ideas when I'm bored. So I think that says something too, because it's when I'm really feeling emotional, or on an airplane, which I'm always emotional on an airplane, and on a hike or something. I think that's when the sayings or ideas pop up, and what character would be saying it, in sort of the scenarios. So.
And you also use, a lot of this is black and white, but you also use color. To your point, maybe talk a little bit about the specifically the watercolors, like these sort of details.
Yeah, so I always draw on the Micron pen and always scan it on, and usually fill it either with watercolor, which is done by hand, and then kind of finagle it, or drop color digitally.
Anyone else?
You talked about musical influences and artists. What about comedians? Your sense of humor is...
I know.
You're a really funny person. There's a sweetness to it, and I think about your love of the Muppets and other things. But
yeah, The Muppets were always hilarious to me because I feel like they have hidden black comedy that people don't pick up on enough. But all the Saturday Night Live stuff, I mean, John Candy, must have been a velvet painting of him in our house. I mean, he was just huge. Yeah, I would say the old legends were kind of big influence. You know, the Belushis, the Bill Murrays, yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this guy?
Ooh, it's a suicidal robot. Decided not to do it.
He's also a transvestite.
Yes,
right.
It's a suicidal transvestite robot.
He never jumps, though.
He never jumps.
So it's
no,
a happy ending for him.
That is from Paradise. Yeah.
Why does anyone else have a question?
When you have like thought bubbles or words with the drawings, do you usually come up with the idea first or the drawing first and then try and find like the caption, or does it all happen in one?
I feel like the caption comes first. I feel like I'm in the car and I'm like, do I need to be cool? And then I go home and assess the situation.
Yes, you do. At all times.
I was going to ask a question. Just, I see kind of like a 60s animation or something, like a 70s animation, like a Ralph Bakshi, lizards kind of thing. I'm wondering if you ever considered doing that, or if you ever watched that for inspiration or something like that.
Stay tuned on that. But huge influence on Bakshi was like also huge influence. All of those like heroes and Crumb and heavy metal, all that animation is huge in here.
Stay tuned as far as when you're working.
Yes.
I love this panel because we have these. It's the first time we see the characters together. They've escaped their border, and the ostrich is hooked up with the wizard. And I feel like this is a great panel in that it shows the kind of what you were saying about the sort of sweetness that underlies the sort of rolled eye frustration with the world. And there is hope. You will find your ostrich and your wizard.
In fact, you should always, I love this phrase, hope is where the home is, because hope does feel like home sometimes. And I think it's what drives you, and I feel like, a lot of people throw that out, and it's a real privilege to keep the silly and keep the hopes, and yeah.
Last question, unless someone else has a... Yeah.
This is actually a non-book related question, but just having followed your work for a long time, has it been easy for you, because you've moved into more mediums than I think anyone I know, and you just described, how you use this one particular pen. Has that been an easy process for you to be able to float into all these different mediums and work, and kind of collaborate with the simple way that you work?
Yeah, I feel like now it feels really comfortable, but I feel like you can tell previously that I was searching for like the right, and even, looking at some of the drawings for this book or looking in the archives, I feel like you can see I was kind of still finding my way a little bit, and I feel like now it feels super comfortable, and I think time helped, and figuring out what mediums to use, what pens and stuff. So.
And also having the restrictions of having a deadline with this book.
Yeah. Yes.
That's JC. He's the publisher, by the way. You answered this a little bit, I think, and the last question is sort of, the title of this book. Why do you feel like it's important for people to be bored, especially now when we are always sort of engaged in some way.
I mean, I think that's where you come from, and I think that's where originality and ideas and reflections come from, but I think we're all afraid of that right now because you can, really go into a hole of looking up things, getting dumber. We have a rule now at the house. No phones after a certain time. But yeah, I think you need to have that struggle to feel bored. You need to struggle a little bit. I mean, if we're all spoiled with searching for things every second or looking at other people's lives every second and liking things and blah blah blah, we're kind of losing the plot a little bit. So and especially as a creative, to make things, you have to go to that place, and it's really hard to go to that place if you have a million distractions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hi.
So I've known you through friends for a long time, and I don't know if we've spent much time together, but I've really enjoyed all the work you've done on Lightning Attic.
Thank you.
And I've been looking at that stuff for years, so it was really cool to see your book finally come out.
Oh, thank you.
See what's inside your head. Because it's beautiful what you do for other people, but it's really cool what you've done for yourself.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Out of any of the characters in your book, who would you want to hang out with for a night out?
Oh, that's a good one.
Who do you want to party with? That guy's pretty good.
I think that monster's got something to say. I mean, I think for different reasons. I mean, are we talking a night out?
A night out.
Okay. I think I'm going to go with, well, I got to say the walrus on the cover. He knows what's up.
He likes AC/DC, so.
He's actually not in the book. Because I felt like his spirit was so strong. I didn't need to put him in the book because I think his face just puts it all there.
And the back of his head.
And the back of his head.
I was thinking about that because these characters reappear in the book, but do you think you're still creating more characters? Are there still characters that come out, or are these the ones you're kind of like the Muppets, you're working with them over time?
Yes, I think there's more to come. Yeah, it's fun creating characters. I think these guys have more to say, but yeah, it's really fun creating characters. I wish I did more in this book.
The panels with the phone messages seem so different than everything else. There's no characters. I'm wondering how they fit in the book.
So the way that sequence is connected, it's actually an actual voicemail from my parents' answering machine that was like, leave the name and number at the time, the heavy New York Jew Long Island accent. But it's basically a voicemail. They're not there, so it's kind of a sequence of the entire voicemail, but they're not at the other end of the phone. Plus, I miss answering machines.
Yeah.
And also, this is all based on wallpaper that was in my house at the time.
Very 70s.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Jess. Love you.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books author reading series. Don't forget, you can listen to this and all our other great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Thanks again for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.